Voices of Central Pennsylvania is talking with 7th District Congressman Joe Sestak, candidate for U.S. Senate running against Arlen Specter. Thank you for being here and talking with Voices.
Great to be here, thanks.
Most people in Centre County don't know about you, but you have a 31-year Navy career ending as a 3-star admiral. You held key leadership positions in the Clinton administration and now are a congressman. Tell us something about the district you represent and how your Navy experience helps you lead.
Absolutely. My district, which I was born and raised in, is 55% Republican when I went to run the first time, 33% Democrat. It's a wonderful district because it represents all of America. It has 69th Street, it's basically got a part of the city. Then it kind of has middle class America, blue, white collar, middle class. And then it has that section where people are quite well to do. So it's across the board. But it's a great district because by and large, they're independent minded no matter what party that they're in. As far as the military, I find great similarity. Out there in the U.S. military, you truly understood that you were responsible for the young men and women that one would lead into harm's way. But you were also accountable for them. And that's how I've tried to run the office. And both in my district and down in Washington, D.C. We keep our office open 7 days a week. We never close. We've handled 3 times the constituency caseload of the average congressional office. In Washington, we passed more pieces of legislation than either senator last year. But the bottom line is, I'm willing to put my position out there, listening, first as a representative, but then stating this is how, having listened, I intend to vote, and be willing to be accountable for it, irregardless of losing the job. It's about principled leadership.
And when you talk about the city, you're talking about Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
Your district isn't there. We hear about blue dogs and Wellstone Democrats and such. In just 1 or 2 words, if you had to label yourself, what kind of Democrat are you? In other words, where do you land in the spectrum?
Well, I have always considered myself very pragmatic, but that's happened to land me smack dab in the progressive wing of the Democrats. Why do I consider that pragmatic? Everybody in the military has health care. We go to war, healthy warriors, and we don't worry about our families when I left them for 11 months of a war about being covered. Education, we know now no longer will advance you to senior chief petty officer unless you've earned an associate's college degree in technology. Your time, our money. Education, security, health security. And economic security, come on in. Stay around for 20 years, you have a pension. Not only that, we teach you a skill. So you have quality of life in their next life. And so that's how I landed smack dab in the progressive wing, because we invest in people, but with also the sense of accountability for that investment.
Thank you. President Obama is supporting Senator Specter. He's been very upfront about that, and asking the rest of the Democratic Party leadership to support him as well. Specter already has the support of Ruth Rudy, for example, the Democratic National Committee member from Centre County. And in view of that, how would you characterize the Centre County Democratic Party's role regarding your visit here tonight?
Well, there will be a number of the committee members who are actually coming to the event this evening. Diane and others have actually helped to organize it. Look, I respect this president, and I don't begrudge him in the very tough battle he's had down there about wanting the political calculation, wanting to have a 60th vote. But at the end of the day, it's about us Pennsylvanians. And we did not seize the White House through political calculation. We seized it through audacity. We ran against the establishment. And you can't just vote once for change. You've got to fight for change. So when I look up and I say, can Pennsylvania bear another 6 years of Arlen Specter? I say no. Someone who helped get us into this mess of a savage recession, a tragic war in Iraq, someone who actually voted to deregulate Wall Street, to play roulette with our savings, to actually slip in the middle of the night that the Bush administration would no longer have to bring attorney general nominations to the Senate. How can we ever ask someone like that to help get us out? I would run against Arlen Specter if he was Republican or Democrat. In his heart of hearts, I think President Obama wants a real Democrat.
Into your second term in the House, you're running against one of the most powerful senators in the country. He was known as a moderate Republican, pro-choice, good voting record on labor, supported the public option, in a time when moderate Republicans are hard to find. Now, as a Democrat, he's lost his seniority, but he's expected to get it back if he wins the next election. How do you respond to the argument that it's better the devil you know, especially when he'll be powerful, than a newcomer with high ideals?
I think somebody needs to know the devil, that he's actually an emperor with no clothes. His actual labor record lifetime is 61%. That's not pro-labor. That is not pro-working family. As the AFL-CIO president told me, John Sweeney, it's about the working family. And so there's been a perception, but 2,000 votes for President Bush, where Rick Santorum said that he was the critical vote for the tax cuts, to where he was chairman for President Nixon's statewide campaign, as well as President Bush's, to where he actually voted for tax cuts that actually let large corporations keep their jobs overseas, profits overseas, and not come home to be taxed, to where in the middle of the night he voted for the Halliburton loophole. So now when Halliburton drills for Marcellus shale natural gas, they don't have to tell us the chemicals we put in the water. I call that lockstep with Rick Santorum. So I might sit back here and say, seniority, what did you do with your seniority? Pennsylvania, in the last 30 years, grew a percentage of 30% more jobs. The rest of the nation did 58%. We're 48th in SAT scores. The youth aren't staying. Our population growth in those years was 5.4%. The rest of the nation was 34%. And seniority, do you really think Bob Casey wants to be the junior senator again? All those senators basically said, yours 97th, and threw out the deal the president, or at least Mr. Reid, tried to say, because they recognized what Mr. Reid said one time, the majority leader, Arlen is always there when you don't need him. Pennsylvania needs someone who's fighting for the working family. That's why I'm running.
And do you think you'll get the endorsement of the PA AFL-CIO?
I don't know, because it was interesting. I find that I get the locals. I have a number of them already. But I do understand about the establishment. And we'll wait to see. But I do know this. Again, as John Sweeney, head of the AFL-CIO, said, it's the working family I want. Those where Arlen Specter had actually voted 4 times against increasing Pell Grants so youth could go to college, particularly here in Pennsylvania, it's so expensive. 3 times against SCHIP to cover 4 million more children and low-income women who are pregnant. No, I think once people see the record and recognize that Arlen's politics, switching on public option, once I got in, switching on Defensive Marriage Act, switching on card check, once they see that, recognize that, hey, his politics helped get us into this mess, there's no way they're going to say, help get us out.
Okay, I have a few questions about a few issues, and then we'll be done. On the
No rush.
economy, sorry, on the economy and many other issues, your position doesn't waver much from the Obama administration. But
Nor
I do,
does it even waver, from day to day, as
All right.
Arlen Specter's does.
But I do have some specifics. On healthcare, you say that single payer is not the right way to go, but you support the public option. We are the last industrialized country to allow someone to make a profit off of someone else's poor health, pain, and suffering. If, in your opinion, the government is good enough to run an alternative to private sector health insurance, why isn't it capable of running at all?
What I say about single payer is that it isn't a bad choice. I just believe that in the long term, covering everyone is necessary, but the efficiency of that in the long term, I believe, is better if you have fair competition and transparency within that competition. So that's what the public option really is. Is it government run? That's not the important issue. The issue is it's funded and lives or dies only by the amount of co-pays and premiums of those who join it. As you know, it wasn't funded by the government. What we did is took out the antitrust provisions at the insurance. Do I think it's unfair today? Oh, absolutely. 94% of all health insurance markets are non-competitive in pricing according to the Department of Justice. So we took out the antitrust provisions, put a competitor out there that is going to live or die on those who join it. It does get a several $billion kickstart loan that it has to pay back, but then it lives or dies on making fair competition. Here's why. By the way, it doesn't mean you'd rule out
We're getting there.
single payer, but it does mean that I believe in the longer term, competition gives rise to, if you have fair competition, less cost, and more entrepreneurship and innovation.